Hi, welcome to Far From Eden. Well, this topic is certainly in the news lately, the draft, right? And I know I've already done at least one video on it, but I have to do this video for two reasons. Number one, it's in the news again the last couple of days for a different reason entirely, not just automated for men, but also I need to make this video because I need to admit I was wrong. I was wrong. I have officially changed my stance on the draft. Okay, so let's back up just a second. So, in the last several days, it has been reported that the Senate is pushing for women to be added to selected service. And so I think just a week or two ago, they were talking about, the House was talking about making it automatic for men to be enrolled in the draft, like instead of, going to the post office and getting one of those forms, do the right thing, men, instead of that, or when you register to vote, or whenever they try to remind you of your, oh gosh, I guess they look at it as a responsibility of the men. And so because people are just not doing that, men are just not doing that, they're going to make it so easy for you and make it automatic. Yeah, that's for your convenience. Hi, we're the government and we're here to help. But now the Senate is saying, well, let's add the women to the draft. Well, as you can imagine, that's not being welcomed by everyone. Now, my official stance has always been I'm against the draft. That has not changed. However, two things. Number one, I was thinking combat. Well, they don't all have to be in combat. Not everybody in the military is in combat. You need other roles, right? Somebody needs to cook the food. Somebody needs to clean up. Somebody needs to wash the clothes. Literally, you need people to do that too. Well, I'm all for that. Yeah, if you're going to draft the men, heck yeah, draft the women. Absolutely. In 1920, wasn't it, that the 19th Amendment was passed? They were extending the right to vote to women without extending the responsibilities. And that was a big reason why women actually didn't want the vote, because they didn't want the responsibility. Well, that's fine, because a bunch of men came along and were like, that's okay, just vote. And they were like, oh, we'll take that. So they didn't fight for it, right? They held so many signs, people just gave in. They actually did a little bit of terrorism, especially in England when they were, the suffragettes. Anyway, so I've been listening to what all the sides have to say about women being drafted, and it's come to my attention that a lot of trad cons will say, oh, I'm against the draft, to get out of saying one way or another about the women. I don't want to be lumped in with those people at all. That is not me. That's not why I say that I'm against the draft. I'm just not a giant statist. I don't trust government. I'm not, all that stuff, but I do not want to be confused with those trad cons that, expect men to be traditional and women get these, get this soft life, privileged lives where there's nothing really required of them except to, I don't know, pack the kids' lunches and maybe make some dinner and straighten up the house. To me, those are not the duties of a woman. It goes far beyond that. So no, definitely don't want to be confused with the trad cons, the trad wives, any of those people, because I'm just not in agreement with them. So since it's more likely that they're not going to get rid of the draft altogether, then I say draft the women. Obviously, don't put them in combat. And I'm not saying that because they're delicate and you need to protect them. I'm not saying it. I'm saying because they'll get the men killed. And I've said that in other videos. They'll get the men killed. They can't carry this stuff. It's a waste of money. It's worse than that to put them in combat. But you can certainly put them to work in factories making stuff. They can wash the clothes. They can, they can clean the barracks. There's so many supportive roles that they can do. And absolutely, they should do it. They should absolutely do it. I've thought about, well, what about what's going to happen if you've got children? If it's, and I don't mean just for the woman, but the man too. What are you going to do about those kids? Because if the man's being drafted and the woman's being drafted, well, where are the kids going to go? I certainly don't want more government raising them. Then again, if your kids are enrolled in school and daycare and all the rest of it, is there a difference? I don't know. This is not for me to decide. This is a big reason why I don't think that it's a woman's role in government, because I'm thinking about how I feel rather than trying to sort out all the facts of all of it. I don't want the women to get out of it, especially because if the women can vote, then they sure shouldn't be able to vote to send people to war when they don't have any skin in the game. And that's true for, I believe that for the representatives and stuff, for the government officials, but they're aged out. And so many of them don't even have children. So that's convenient too. But let's get into what's going on with this women for the draft situation. Apparently, according to The Hill, a firestorm has erupted over requiring women to sign up for military draft. Good. I want to hear all about that because I want to know, well, how are you going to get out of it this time, women? What are you going to say? What are you going to say? They're not even going to make the combat argument that I made. But even if you do make the combat argument and say, well, we'd lose the war for you because we're not as strong, as if they're going to say that. But even if they did, you still can do supporting things, can't you? And I saw on the Whatever podcast, they were going around saying, would you give up your right to vote? Or would you fight? And a lot of them were like, I give up I'm not going to fight. I don't have to vote. And a couple of them were saying, oh, no. Of course, they're, again, thinking fight. But I think they should be washing the underpants. All right. Firestorm. Oh, this is by Alexander Bolton, and it was published today at 6 a.m. Today is June 20th, 2024. Senate Democrats have added language to the annual defense authorization bill to require women to register for the draft, prompting a backlash from Republicans and social conservatives and complicating the chances of moving the bill on the Senate floor before Election Day. Conservatives led by Senator Roger Wicker, he's a Republican of Mississippi, are certain to attempt to remove the provision requiring women to register for the draft, which could present a tough vote for Senators Jon Tester, he's a Democrat from Montana, and Jackie Rosen, a Democrat from Nevada, and other Democrats to tight re-election races. Okay, so Jackie, a woman senator from Nevada, wants to add women. Well, good for her. Republican candidate Sam Brown, who is running against Rosen, is already making it an issue in the Nevada Senate race. Brown, an Army veteran who was severely burned by an improvised explosive device explosion, slammed Rosen in a video for voting to require women to sign up for the draft. Look at my face. This is the high cost of war, he posted recently on social platform X. Quote, Amy and I volunteered to serve, and we honor all who serve, he wrote, referring to his wife, but forcing America's daughters to register for the draft is unacceptable. Shame on Jackie Rosen. Why? Why is it unacceptable? Why? Does pointing to your face, why is that an argument? That's not an argument. Are you saying that a woman's face is worth more than a man's face? Now, that's an argument not to go to war, but very few people in Congress are going to argue that, because war is big business. And that's what, that's what their bosses want them to do. So if they want to stay there, they're not going to speak out against war very much. It's one thing that both sides, the red and the blue, always seem to agree upon. And that's when you think you need to be worried, I think, is when they agree on something. You're like, oh, but in reality, they really do agree on everything. It's just a matter of extremes. That's why I am not for either side. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not. No. It's the uniparty. It's the, two wings of the same bird, two sides of the same coin, all of that. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. Shame on Jackie Rosen. Yeah. Okay. In the video posted below these comments, Brown pointed to the scarring on his face as evidence of the dangers women would face in combat theaters. Exactly. Okay, we know. But again, it doesn't have to be combat, which I was dumb. I was thinking combat, but then again, I'm not in Congress. I'm not making decisions for everybody. So. All right. You said it again. Look at my face. This is the high cost of war. And I just found out that Jackie Rosen voted this week to make signing up for the draft mandatory for our daughters. You'll be hearing more from me on this, he said. Again, not an argument. Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican of, I think that's Missouri, goodness gracious, called the provision requiring women to sign up for the draft insane. Again, not an argument. He accused the Biden administration of trying to implement a woke agenda at the Pentagon. Well, that's already happening, but this is actually not the place to have that argument. This is not that argument, but nice try. God, he just thinks he can say that. And it's like, come on, all you Fox News Republicans, just agree with me. This is insane. Because you know why? Because they're talking to the boomers. They're talking to the older people who watch C-SPAN, not the people who are watching, this kind of content or content like it on the Green Network. So he goes on. Okay. There shouldn't be women in the draft. They shouldn't be forced to serve if they don't want to, he said on Fox News. I didn't know that was coming. He criticized Democrats for wanting to experiment with the military, saying normal people are like, leave our daughters alone. It's not really experimenting. I am almost positive, actually I'm pretty positive, that the women have to serve in the Israeli military, and that has been true for a very long time. So it's not really experimenting, right? I mean, I guess with ours, but I would say the Israelis have had quite the military for a long time, and they've had women, and I think might even be true also of the Swedish military. So, or the Swiss. So anyway, it's not an experiment, right? This is not like, oh my gosh, no one's ever thought of this before. Leave our daughters alone. What about your sons? That's the problem. That's the problem. And they're not saying why. It's just implied. It's just implied. It's just that women are worth more. That's what you're saying. Women are worth, their faces are worth more. Can't be burned off, like his face. Leave our daughters alone. I think think that's where a lot of you went wrong. I think you left your daughters alone. I think you didn't require them to be responsible. I don't think you taught them any duty. I don't think character building has ever been, well, it hasn't been a strong priority in raising women for at least the last 3 generations. Nothing's required. You can't even talk about this. They're not even pretending. Ugh. Hawley led efforts to strip language requiring women to sign up for the draft from the Defense Authorization Bill in 2021 and 2022. That's true. They have been trying, different organizations have been trying to get women added to the draft for a while now. Going back to the ERA, I remember when I was a kid in the 80s, and my mom was telling me about the Equal Rights Amendment, and I heard about it as a little girl. And I remember thinking, oh, equal rights for women, Equal Rights Amendment. And I can't remember what I said, but I remember my mom saying, oh, no, we're against that. And I said, why? Why would you? Because if you're for the Equal Rights Amendment, then women would have to sign up for the draft. And I was like, oh, yeah, we don't want that. I wish there had been more explained. I wish I was old enough to ask questions at that point. But even as a little girl, I was like, yeah, no, I don't know what all these, that's all I need to know. You know, it's true. Oh, a group affiliated with former Vice President Mike Pence also weighed in on the issue Wednesday. The group, Advancing American Freedom, wrote a letter to Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell and Speaker Mike Johnson, declaring that, quote, the notion of the United States of America requiring women to register to fight our wars is simply untenable and must be opposed at all costs. Man, I am so sorry I ever said my answer was ever, I'm against the draft entirely. Because I realize like people are saying that to get out of saying, no, women need to be required to do the same thing that men are doing. I wish we could just get rid of the draft. I hate the fact that the government can force you to go fight somewhere that you may not want to go and fight. It might not seem relevant to what's going on in our homeland. And I think you can look back in the last several conflicts and realize that that's true. But now that if we're here and I'm going to argue this, I'm going to get in here and say, no, you sign these women up, because that might be the thing, might be one of the things that gets women to, and it clicked for me when I was watching 2 things. I was watching part of the Whatever podcast where they're going around asking them, and I was watching Tim Pool, and they were talking about it doesn't have to be combat. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so stupid. Duh, of course not. There's so much other stuff to do. But that's the thing is just articles like this, you do. They're talking about fighting, and yet that's not what everybody does in the Army. They need nurses there too. They need doctors and nurses. Well, heck, everybody seems to be going to nursing school. Send them over. And if you don't like that, send everybody home. Wicker, the top-ranking Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee, said he'll try to strip it out of the bill. And yet, still no one has given a reason. But that's all right. I'm opposed to that. I don't think this is the time to get into a debate on the floor of either house about that. We're not anywhere near implementing a draft. And to me, it's a distraction when we need to be talking about real issues that are immediate, he said. That's code for, I can't figure out which one will get me elected next time, so we're just going to say, no. That way, when anybody asks me anything, I can just say, oh, I'm more important. What you think is way more important. We're going to deal with your issues and take care of you. It's so dismissive. Stand politicians. I hope it will fall out, either on the floor or in conference, he added. Fall out. Boy, he's passive in his speech. I guess that's how you get reelected. But Senate Armed Services Committee Chair Jack Reed defended the proposed policy change, arguing that women can hold many warfighting positions without serving as frontline infantry troops. Exactly. Women are doing a remarkable job in our forces today, and if we were in a situation requiring a draft, I think we would need all able-bodied citizens 18 and above, he said. Did you notice he said 18 and above? Because it's really 18 to 25, but that's you got to watch out for stuff like that, because you go, what else are they going to do? Are they going to open it up to older? I just get nervous if government overreaches, because that's all they do. But I agree with that. If you're going to require the men, you need to require the women, or the women don't get the privileges that they get. If we go to a draft, that means we're in a serious, serious situation, he added. It's not like World War II, where we need a lot of infantry. We need cyber experts. We need intelligence analysts, linguists, etc. Wait a second, there are a lot of women out there that can do this better than men, he argued. Well, look at that. They're always going around talking about how much they're so much better. I don't see a reason why, if they want to go and be kicking butt at work right now and be a girl boss, let them go be a girl boss doing that stuff. I would say, though, if it's super, super stressful, I just wouldn't want the men to be put at risk if the women can't hang. But, that's the one thing about the United States is it knows how to have a military, because I think it's pretty much what we are. One big military. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. What a great argument too. But you guys are so good at it. I mean, it's not like they're staying home and having families, He said the intense GOP opposition to the proposal just doesn't make any sense. Indeed, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense unless you can make the argument that they don't have any business, outside of raising the children and being wives and mothers. If you're going to say, Republicans and tradcons and all of you people, that, they can have a job and they can do this, they can do that. What's your argument that they can't be in, other roles in the military, in a draft situation or any situation, as long as it isn't like frontline, putting the men at risk? You have no argument. For example, somebody like Ben Shapiro, obviously Republican, right? His wife is a doctor. So is he also saying women shouldn't join the draft? I really don't know. I don't watch Ben Shapiro, but tradcons like that, right? Whose wives have careers. You have no leg to stand on to say, what? You got to leave our daughters alone. Why? You either have to say that they're inferior to men and can't, do those jobs, or that their role is different and that it's important that we have babies and raise them. And they're not going to say those things. They're in a bit of a bind, and I'm enjoying it, because they're the ones that don't stand up they're the ones, talking about, Christianity and the Bible and God and pretending to be Christian and everything. And it's like, yet you don't really stand up against wokeism. You don't really stand up and say, this is what a man is and who a man is, and this is what a woman is and who a man and who a woman is. And that includes the church, the Christian church. They're clapping their hands, sending girls off to college, talking about careers. So, stop it. If you're not going to actually say, hey, this is what women are, this is where women belong, then you have no business saying they don't belong in war. And I like this to push their hand. Senate aides point out the issue cuts across party lines, with some Republicans generally supportive of requiring women to sign up for the selective service system, just like men when they turn 18. Senate Republicans are already raising doubts about whether Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will even bring the bill to the floor anytime soon, given the dwindling number of days on the legislative calendar before the election. Oh, I am sure it's like hot potato, right? Because we know that basically all politicians want to sway women and people who think like women, because we are emotional. We are all in our feelings. We make decisions based on that. And that's literally since television, since the inception of television, that's how campaigns have gone. It's about trying to affect how you feel about things. And that's how they've, gotten their agenda pushed. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always to the left. So they're all playing hot potato. Nobody wants to touch it because it's a non-winning issue. People don't talk like I talk for a reason, and people don't like it. Women don't like it. A lot of men don't like it. I don't know. Anyway, okay, this is Wicker talking again. I do hope we get to the floor. It's very important we have this debate publicly. I hear rumblings that the Democratic leader may not bring it to the floor. I hope that can be reversed, Wicker said. McConnell on Monday urged Schumer to bring the defense bill to the floor without delay. So it's been through the Senate, so they don't know if they'll bring it to the floor in the House. Okay, I was like, wait a second. Okay, yeah, makes sense. That makes sense. The Republican leader hailed the Senate Armed Services Committee for making up the defense bill earlier this month, but then suggested Democrats may drag out the process of bringing it to the floor. Of course. But shortly after the committee's action, senior Senate Democrats shattered any expectation that they were ready to start taking the requirements of the national defense seriously, he said. Voting to require women to make themselves eligible for the draft could come back to bite Democrats in Republican-leaning or battleground states such as Montana and Nevada. Exactly. Because they know that no matter what side, blue, red, Democrat, Republican, whatever, they know women won't like it. Won't matter. They know. Women won't like it. Women don't want to be drafted, and women aren't used to being told, oh, you have to do this. Oh, this is your responsibility. Oh, this is your duty. That's something that American women, and I think generally women in the West, are not used to hearing. So they're like, we don't want to tell them anything. We don't want to say anything. We don't want it. Just make it go away. Make it somebody else's problem. That's hilarious. It's hilarious. The fact that it's this big of an issue just speaks volumes to me. It speaks volumes. The politicians know the women don't want to be required to do anything. They know if they're at all associated with any kind of bill that ends up requiring women to do anything, they know they're toast. And the way politicians get elected, the way things get moved through government is convincing the women and the people who think like them. National Republican Senatorial Committee Chair Steve Daines, who is a Republican from Montana, seized on the issue in the last Congress when he backed an amendment in 2022 to remove a provision requiring women to register for the selective service system from the National Defense Authorization. Now, I bet you'd want to be that guy. because he saved the day, right? He's a white knight. Look at that. He saved him. Steve Daines. He seized on it last Congress when he backed an amendment to remove the provision to have them on there. Like, oh, ladies, it's your hero. It's so funny. It couldn't be a woman that did it, because what are you trying to say? It's funny. Oh. Okay. Quote, brave Montana men and women carry out the treasure state's rich legacy of service by voluntarily joining our nation's military. There is no need to force our nation's daughters to enter the draft, Daines said at the time. Ah, very clever. See that? See how he put that in there? He's like, hey, they joined voluntarily. And from our state, they're joining voluntarily. Like, as if to say, I don't think anybody should be forced, but also keep our daughters out. Notice they're daughters all of a sudden. It's young men when you're going to send them off to die in war. It's daughters when it's women maybe being required to go and, wash the bedding or cook the meals of the soldiers. It's the daughters, because you're supposed to think of like some little girl in a dress with a bow in her hair and think, oh my gosh, we couldn't do that to little Susie. That's cruel. Who are you? You must be a monster. But poor 18-year-old Kevin, send him off. That's fine. Or 22-year-old or 25-year-old. It's not okay. It's not okay. Hawley offered an amendment to strike the women's draft language from the NDAA in 2021. So he tried to be the hero in 2021. His action put pressure on Democrats to ultimately remove the issue from the bill without voting on the amendment in December of that year. He also sponsored an amendment to the defense bill in 2022 to remove language requiring women to register for the Selective Service System, which was co-sponsored by Republican Senators Ted Cruz, Tom Cotton, Mike Lee, Marco Rubio, Roger Marshall, John Boozman, James Lankford, and Daines. Well, I recognized a few names there, didn't you? Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Tom Cotton. Yeah, they're pretty well known. And again, just these Republican conservative people. Conservative, what are you? They're not conservative. It's pretend conservative. I don't know what they're conserving, because we used to know what a man's role was and what a woman's role was. We used to know that. We also used to understand at some point in time, not too terribly long ago, why our country broke free from England in 1776 and eventually established our own constitution and had it ratified in 1789. There was a reason, and it was because we did not want a type of government that could just be a tyrant. Well, how far we've come, right? Selective service. Just, don't you love the wording selective? Who's selecting anything? Like, the government is selecting you. The government is saying, you go do this, or else we're putting you in the brig, which I still think is a better deal. I do. But I think, I know some white knight will come in there and take it out, unfortunately. But I think it would be great if we could push for women to be drafted, because I think it's one of the ways to get people to admit stuff, right? Sometimes they're just like, nope. They won't admit what they know. And what I'm talking about is, come on, women, you're not as strong as a man. You know this stuff. Unless you're maybe 8 years old or maybe 13, you think that. But come on. But if you start saying, all right, report to, I don't know where the Army play. I was going to say Camp Lejeune, but they're not going to be Marines. I know, report for duty. you're going to see some women like be like, I will cook and clean. I am fine with it. Suddenly, being a wife and mother won't seem so oppressive. It won't be. They don't know what oppressive is. They don't know. They don't know what hardship is, oppression is, lack is. Any of those things in this country, it's not. It's not a thing for women. Not really. Of course, there are victims of crime. Of course. But that's a sliver of the population. That's not the majority. That's not even like a big minority. Although women would have you believe otherwise so that they can play the victim card. But I say, sign them up, man. Sign them up. Send them. Send them. Because they need to understand that if you want to live like a man in society, you need to live like a man in society. You don't get your cake and eat it too. You shouldn't. And as much as I want a world where a big tyrannical federal government can't require people to go and fight, wherever they decide to use their war weapons so they can, build more and sell more to other people and blow more up, as much as I don't want that to be the case, I understand that's not where we are right now. And if we have to, sign the women up for the draft, let's do it. Let's do it. We've already said, hey, let them get careers. Let them do this. Let them do that. And they still think that they're, they're going to conquer the world and be in the STEM field. And clearly having babies is not that important. Let them go to war. Let them be nearby, washing clothes, cleaning the floors, doing some cybersecurity, whatever they're qualified for. Let's not have any, let's not do any hiring just because they're a woman, because I don't want men getting hurt because of the women. But sign them up, send them over. And that's the thing, is these tradcons who will say to the other problem with them is, oh, men, what's wrong with you? Get married. You should get married. Be a man, get over it, blah, blah, blah. How tone deaf are you to say that? Easy for them for now. Easy for them for now. Somebody like Michael Knowles, who had a debate with Pearl and was talking to her about marriage, this, that, and the other, and men should just kind of get over themselves and do it. Not even at all acknowledging the situation in family court and the fact that if the woman breaks the contract, she gets cash and prizes. And she alienates the kids. I mean, just ignoring that entirely. It's awful. And it's prevalent. It's so prevalent in divorces. It's so prevalent. So they ignore that. They're ignoring this too. And it's easy for them. Like I said, I mean, Michael Knowles has a lot of money. His wife's happy right now. Right now. I don't wish anything bad upon the man. I don't. But he is out of touch and he is wrong and he's probably controlled opposition. So that he can keep telling the men folk, come on, do your part. It's the same. It's like, go to war, get married. And there's probably a lot of you out there going, I'd rather go to war. I actually heard from a man once who said that he has more PTSD from his time in family court, getting divorced from his wife, who she filed, than he does from being in combat. I remember him saying that to me. It was early in the days of my awareness and all of this. It was around 2020 or something. And to have him say that, I was like, well, I'll never forget that he told me that. It changed everything. It changed how I look at the statistics of, former soldiers who have ended themselves. Is it because of the wars they've been through, or is it because of how prevalent it is for women to leave men who have been deployed? Like, to leave them when they're deployed. It's horrible, the statistics on that. So yeah, I think he was speaking truth. He was sharing truth that was, I think, bigger than he realized at the time, because he was talking about his own experience. And I was thinking, oh boy, I think this is probably bigger than just you. Definitely. But absolutely, I'm 100%, I can say I was wrong. I should never have just said we should abolish the draft entirely. We should, but I'm not going to be grouped in with all those tradcons that, you know, actually play fairy tales and pretend like certain things are true that aren't true, etc. Back and forth. It's like, no, I'm not with you guys on this. Draft the women, put them in the bill. I want to hear what they really think when their feet are put to the fire. You know, they're gonna want to run back to the kitchen. They'll realize, I don't want to go to war. I want to make food. I want to keep the house clean. I'll homeschool the kids. And some will say no, they wouldn't do that. Give them a week. Let's see. So yeah, so we'll see how far this goes. I think history has shown that some white knight will come along and rescue the women from the bill. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be the case, but at least they can get a little uncomfortable talking about it. And they can just basically, they're revealing themselves, the women are, when they get all awkward about this. And frankly, those men, those conservative men, are revealing themselves too, because they're just like, oh my gosh, this is shocking, but they're not explaining why. It's like that only works on the people who still watch, you know, cable news and think it's real. Other people go, why? Other people have questions. So anyway, thank you guys. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. I think I know, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, I meant to talk about this earlier in the video, but I forgot. I put up a poll because sponsors have started to reach out to me. And this is not just this is y'all's channel. And I make these videos for you. It's been very helpful to me as a living anyway, how this is going. But I'm not about to do anything without, you know, asking your guys' opinion. Because if it was a complete like, ugh, I don't want to do it then. You know what I mean? I will figure something else out if that's the case. But it seems like those of you who've responded so far, y'all are very encouraging and positive. I will absolutely, you know, look into these companies and make sure it sounds like something that will be helpful and useful to us, like the product might be, right? We're not going to just take anything. Also, for those of you expressing concerns about, you know, when somebody, and this is true, I understand when somebody, you know, pays you like to sponsor videos, what have you, then they sort of own you and they can pull that sponsorship at any time if they don't like what you have to say. Well, they can pull it. I will never make myself so dependent on sponsorships or anything like that to where they can affect this message. This message is too important. I believe in it too much. I can get creative about how I say things, etc., because I'm on YouTube. I understand that. There's an understanding going in what YouTube likes, what they don't like. That's why I'm also on Rumble and I'm on Locals. I still have to get content on there. I'm working on it. But yeah, I will never, ever change this message or alter what needs to be said or how it needs to be said because of, oh, this company won't want to sponsor me or I won't be able to have other sponsors. I was shocked they wanted to in the first place. Now I was like, But they kept saying, oh, we like your channel and we've seen your videos. And I'm like, are you sure? But apparently, but it's not going to change its message. I won't. I'm too stubborn. I'm too stubborn for that. It's too important. You guys are real to me. This is not just like, oh, this is a topic I could cover. No, that's not why we're here. So they will never get me to change what I will say or to not say it. You can trust in that. Even if it has to be me just screaming outside my door because I can't be platformed anywhere, I'll do that and say what needs to be said before I won't say it. So I appreciate you guys. I really do. Hope you found a way to feed your soul today. Super important. And I hope you found some peace. And I love you guys. And I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Take care. Good night.